Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Hakima Cummings, and we are live today on our first story time of the month of Ramadan. ACC is going to be having lots of story times, 5 of them this month, featuring authors of various books that are for Muslim kids and about Muslim identity and culture. So today we have the first of the series. We have the author of... My kids are here, they make some noise. We have the author of What Does a Muslim Look Like, Mohamed Abdel-kader, and I'll just bring him into the stream. Welcome.
Hey, Hakim, how are you? Assalamu alaikum.
I'm good, alhamdulillah, wa alaikum salam. It's good to have you. Thank you for joining us and being a part of our Ramadan programming.
Thanks so much, Ramadan Kareem, to you and your family and everybody watching.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. So I want to do a quick intro of you. So Mohamed Abdel-kader is the author of the book, What Does a Muslim Look Like? I have the book right here. We ordered it so that my kids can enjoy this wonderful book. It is a story about 2 inquisitive youngsters who learn about the diversity of Muslims after meeting 2 classmates in school. Mohamed Abdel-kader previously served in the administration of President Barack Obama as Deputy Assistant Secretary for International and Foreign Language Education at the United States Department of Education's Office of Post-Secondary Education. Mouthful.
It is.
He joins us today for us to all enjoy his book. You can also find his book for purchase on Amazon at the link shown on the screen. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to prepare that link right now, but we will definitely have that available for ACC's audience and everyone publicly as well. Brother Mohamed, welcome, and thank you for being a part of our programming.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. So firstly, I wanted to ask you more about your work for the Obama administration. I found that to be very intriguing. So tell me, like, what your work was all about, and then how did that inform your perspective on education, access to education, and the student debt crisis?
Great. Great question. Thank you. So I got involved. I've always sort of been involved a little bit in politics. I've always cared about the political process from when I was really young. From when I was in high school, I started to do Model UN, Youth in Government, some of these programs, and it cultivated an interest in really understanding how policy was made. I volunteered on a number of campaigns, the Obama campaign as well, back in 07, 08. And then in 2014 was asked to join the administration. And ultimately, my role within the Obama administration was to oversee the international education programs at the Department of Education. So this is largely a team that makes grants really to colleges and universities for what we call world area studies and less commonly taught languages. That was the bulk of the work. So what does that really mean in like normal speak? What that is like we were funding essentially like the capacity for the United States to develop its expertise in different parts of the world. So we were funding like Latin American studies centers, Middle East studies centers, Asian studies centers, Southeast Asian studies centers, and the corresponding languages for those particular world areas. Part of that is certainly a national security and foreign policy mandate where we want to make sure that the country has that level of expertise, right? That you want to make sure that you have enough people who speak Mandarin and Russian and Tagalog and some of the really less commonly taught languages. And what that means, like not Spanish, not German, not French, because those are just very commonly taught. It's the other languages that sometimes we don't have that expertise. So that was a big part of our focus. These grants were largely focused on post-secondary institutions around the country. We also sort of on our team had a small Fulbright portfolio. So you may be familiar with the Fulbright programs that are at the State Department. The Fulbright programs at the Department of Education were really focused a lot on capacity building. So one of the programs sent PhD students abroad to really refine their expertise. Another one focused on sending teachers abroad, and another one was focused on sending groups of educators abroad to go learn about other cultures, go really experience them, and bring that knowledge back to the United States. So it was very much seen as having a multiplier effect. Now, it was awesome to be a part of, obviously the Obama administration, to get to work with Secretary Arne Duncan and later Secretary John King. What was really cool about that time is we were really, I think, having very substantive conversations about access in all of our respective areas. And for me, focusing on international education, what I began to see was that not every young person was going to have the opportunity to learn about a different part of the world, or to learn a world language, or to study abroad. There were significant access barriers. Sometimes it was the top institutions that got these amazing grants. Well, what about the students at community colleges? What about the students in K-12 schools who may have just had their social studies classes cut, and that's the only place where they get access? So we started to think a little bit more about that. And luckily, we had a great set of institutions that we were working with that were doing more K-12 outreach, more community college outreach as a part of that. We had some programs to serve both of those types of institutions, both the K-12 institutions and schools, as well as community colleges, and institutions that may not have one of these big Title VI grants. A big part of my role was really just being an advocate for international education and raising the profile of how important it is for us to have these skills. And I'll leave you with one last thing, Hakima, is that, if you just look around our country, if you look around the United States these days, our playgrounds that our kids play in are so much more diverse. Their classrooms are more diverse. Our communities are more diverse. When we go to the grocery store, we're hearing so many different languages. And that requires us to have, as citizens, a mindset and a disposition to be able to maneuver and navigate that diversity, to understand one another, because inevitably we have some similarities and we have some differences. From a business perspective, 1 in 5 American jobs are tied to global trade. So for us to remain competitive economically, it's important to understand what's happening in different parts of the world, how our products that are manufactured, or our products that we're rolling out from the US are showing up in different communities around the world. And then finally, from a national security perspective, this last year with the pandemic, we've all seen how, a public health crisis that started in one part of the world very quickly became our own local crisis in all of our communities and affected all of our lives. So whether it's dealing with public health emergencies, whether it's dealing with displacement of individuals because of war, because of climate change, big challenges like climate change or other security challenges, we have to have a public that is globally competent, that understands these issues. So that's my experience with the Obama administration, and a little bit before that with some of the institutions I've worked with, has really shaped that perspective going forward. And I think it's just a really important issue that we often don't talk about.
Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenally important. I mean, it's amazing the work that you've been doing. What are your perspectives on the student debt crisis, and how has that your work that you have done, how has that informed your ideas about the student debt crisis?
That's a great question. So I'll share. Look, I mean, first of all, definitely want to give a shout out to Continuous Charity for the work you're doing and helping young people access college. Accessing a post-secondary experience is obviously one of the best ways to alleviate yourself to bring yourself out of poverty, to achieve upward mobility, and definitely that is becoming more and more of a challenge in this country. A few quick reflections. I think over time, when we look at the statistics, especially for public institutions, I'm talking about community colleges, a lot of our 4-year public universities, we often look at them and say, oh my gosh, the tuition has gone up so much. And it's gone up, it's outpaced inflation, and really made that post-secondary experience that is really fundamental to thriving in the 21st century economy, more out of reach for so many of our young people. And what I'd say is, I think there's a question of values here, because over the years, you could go back 30, 40, 50 years and see that a lot of these institutions were funded at 80, 90% of their funding was coming from public tax dollars. Today, I think the average is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12%. And as that funding has declined for public education, for post-secondary education, institutions have had to put that burden in a number of places. So whether it's by trying to increase the research money they're bringing in and the overhead related to it, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's auxiliary revenue from things like ticket sales, maybe sporting events, TV revenues, t-shirt sales, those types of things. But finally, the big one is tuition. And what a lot of institutions have seen is that the market is going to bear a higher tuition cost because people want that mobility. Now, unfortunately, with that is some students can't afford it. And a lot of students end up taking out a lot of loans in order to get through school, and it places a burden on them because wages may have not also kept up with that. And that's a big challenge that we face. So I think that's something that I definitely commend the work that you're doing. But I think from a state's level, the federal perspective, we do have to think about higher education funding and bringing that cost down for everyone. A lot of institutions have a high tuition, high aid model, which means that for some institutions, you may pay a very high sticker price. And their perspective is, well, that's going to subsidize some of the students who can't pay those high tuition prices. But unfortunately, what happens is, while some of those institutions have a lot of financial aid to give, sometimes a lot of students are actually turned off by it, and they say, you know what, I can't even afford to go to that school, so I'm not even going to bother.
Right.
When they may be very academically qualified, and they self-select out of the process.
Exactly.
So look, this is a big systemic issue. I think a lot of it fundamentally starts with our commitment to higher education, saying this is everyone's right. This is something that everyone deserves, and it's important for them to have upward mobility in the world that we live in.
Right, right. And here at A Continuous Charity, we have some special programs that not only are we trying to offer interest-free loans to Muslim students in general, but we also have special programs to make sure that when there are gaps, that disparity gaps where some people are not able to access, we're actually catering some of these loans, particularly to underserved communities, such as the Black community with our educational justice program, and such as our Fund Her Future campaign for women who are divorced, victims of survivors of domestic violence, and people who have become recently widowed. So they've lost that stability in their household. And so they need to go back to school, maybe in their 40s, maybe in their 50s, maybe in their 20s. And they thought they didn't have to go back because they've had some kind of trauma happen. And so these are communities that have been underserved and overlooked, and where we have these special programs to make sure that even though we don't have a ton of funds, the amount of funds that we do have, we're giving some to those underserved communities as well. So that equal access is a really important goal for ACC, and we really appreciate everyone who is here and supporting you for coming into our live for the story time. I did want to put up a link here just in case anybody is here and wants to put their Ramadan donations to ACC. I personally have a Launch Good link. I do work for ACC as their partnerships and outreach coordinator, but on my own accord, I'm raising money, inshallah, for ACC as well via this link. So if anyone is out there and would like to add their $5, $10, $15, $20 to the pot, please go ahead and use that link. And with that, we are going to start our story time of your amazing book, What Does Muslim Look Like? I do have my children here, my 5-year-old and 4-year-old. They will be off screen, but they'll be, enjoying the book. And then you also have your PowerPoint here. I'm going to add that to the stream.
Yeah, let me
so
should I share my screen. Let me.
I think everyone can see it.
Oh, it's already up. Okay, let me make sure we can maximize it then. Can you guys see everything okay? Can you guys see it okay?
Comment here. I can see it. I'm hoping everyone else can see it. I don't see any comments that says that they can't. So I hope everything's good.
Okay. Well, we can jump right in. I guess I don't know if you guys want to know a little bit of background about the book or anything like that, Hakeem, or do you want me to just jump right in?
Sure. Please tell us a little background about the book before you start writing.
Yeah, so, I appreciate it, and definitely just again want to thank Continuous Charity for hosting me today, and for the work that you guys are doing on higher ed access. It's such an important thing for so many communities, and I just really commend it. So many students are struggling to access higher ed. So thanks for all you're doing. A little bit about this book, What Does a Muslim Look Like? So a number of years ago, I had some interactions with folks where I realized that people didn't fully have an accurate understanding and depiction of the diversity in the Muslim community, both here in the United States and globally. In fact, I found that I had stereotypes and misunderstandings of the diversity of the communities that are so present and so vibrant, and come from so many different parts of the world, and have so many different cultural traditions, but are still Muslim. I wanted to do something to capture this in a fun and palatable and easy to digest format. And I'll share that initially this book had started off. I had an interaction with someone where they thought all Muslims came from the Middle East and North Africa, and I had to correct them and had sort of shared, well, actually there are a lot of Muslims. Most Muslims in the United States actually are of African American descent, at around 30 to 35%, followed by South Asian descent, and then and then the group behind that, a third, was sort of Muslims of Arab descent, like myself. My family's originally from Egypt. And what I also shared with this individual, that actually a lot of Arab Americans were of Christian faith. And it was something that I think caught the person off guard and sort of defied their stereotype. A couple weeks later, I was actually flying through an airport, and a TSA agent was looking at my boarding pass and asked me, what kind of name is that? He had looked at my name, and I said, well, it's an Arab and Muslim name. And he kind of said, well, that's funny. And I said, well, what's so funny? And he said, well, you don't look like a Muslim. And I stopped and I said, well, what does a Muslim look like? And he gave me the boarding pass and he said, well, not you. And I said, okay, that's weird. So what does he think a Muslim looks like that I don't fit that image? And I thought long and hard and started writing a book that was, I think at the time, pretty dry. A lot of statistics, a lot of demographics, a lot of, really just a very studious kind of book. And I started writing it, and I got a couple of chapters in, and I realized this is really dry, and this is such an easy concept that a kid would get it. And I remember thinking to myself, well, maybe I should think about this in a slightly different way. And I ended up coming up with this idea of a children's book, and I wanted to encapsulate this idea in this just sort of fun and easy to digest format. So let's go ahead and jump right into the book. Can you guys see it full screen? All right, I'll take that as a yes. So let's jump right in. I want to definitely give props to my good friend Abdullah Badawi, who lives in Atlanta, who is the just amazing illustrator who did the drawings for this book. On a bright afternoon in the middle of May, brother Jack and sis Jane left their school to go play. Then they did all their homework, their spelling and math, and they sat down for dinner after a warm bath. When the kids and their parents were ready to eat, they all put down clean napkins to stay nice and neat. They ate tasty green salad and a fish fillet. Jane said, "Hey, Mom and Dad, guess what we learned today? We saw frogs that love jumping. Then we studied plants, also spiders and beetles and black shiny ants." After Jane finished speaking, Jack suddenly said, "There's a question that's been stuck in my head." On the playground, Jack said, I learned something cool about two of my friends who I know from school. My friend Adam is Muslim, and Sarah is too. We're not Muslim, but they look like me and you. So what does a Muslim look like? Mom paused for a moment, then she started to say, Muslims, dear children, don't look just one way. I have to say, this is one of my favorite illustrations in the whole book. It's a lot of fun. I've seen Muslims with brown eyes and hazel eyes too, also green eyes and gray eyes, and also some blue. There are blondes and brunettes, and some with red hair, some straight, some curly, some with hair everywhere. You'll find Muslims in China and America too. Oh, and Russia and Egypt, and even Timbuktu. There are tan and pale Muslims, and shades in between. Some are short and chubby, some are tall and lean. Jack said, wow, Mom and Dad, I did not realize that Muslims exist in every shape and size. From the brightest new styles to traditional robes, Muslims wear fashions from all over the globe. Many teachers and doctors are Muslim too. They teach us in schools and help us fight the flu or COVID. Some Muslims speak softly, while others are quite loud, and some use sign language to talk to the crowd. Jane smiled at her brother. They were both so surprised by the many cool things they had just realized. No one should be judged by their clothes, hair, or face. There's so much more to a person than religion or race. Like Christians, Jews, Buddhists, and Hindus worldwide, Muslims are defined by what's on the inside. Thank you. And that's the book.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
My kids love the book. They're sitting right here, and they're geeked that they can see the person who actually wrote it.
Cool. Well, hopefully they can write their own book too one day.
Yes, inshallah. So we actually have the Amazon link. I will add that to the bottom right now. So please go ahead and patronize Brother Mohammed and his author his book that he authored, mashallah. So we also wanted to do a short activity with the kids.
Yeah.
They have a coloring page. I can show you the one that they have here. So if anyone was, to go to our link in bio on our Instagram for ACC, you would see the link to print this out. So I thought this was a good image. Let me just make myself a little bit bigger here. I thought this was a good image because it's showing the 5 pillars of Islam, and it's also showing 5 different children. They could be from anywhere in the world, all Muslims, all looking differently, and kids will, color this the way that they see them. Maybe they'll have purple skin, maybe they'll have, they'll color them in all different ways. So I just want to invite my kids to come over here. I won't be showing them on the screen, but you guys can come over here and we can start coloring. Let me see if there's any comments. If you guys have any questions, anyone who is watching, if you have any questions for the author, Brother Mohammed, please ask your questions. Come over here and you can color. You can take the headphones out. There we go.
We got a lot of
Come over
people
here.
watching.
Come over here, guys. They've been very quiet and
Good for them.
you go around the light and come all the way over here. And then we'll be going. Okay, so I also just wanted to ask you, what is your personal journey? You can start coloring. We're going to show everyone your colored pictures, okay? What has been your personal journey with accessing the ability to finance your personal higher education? What degrees do you have? Where did you go, and how did you pay? If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, of course. No, I don't have a problem sharing that at all. So I was very lucky. I grew up in Clemson, South Carolina. My parents were faculty members at the university. And although they didn't have at the time, there weren't sort of faculty benefits. Some institutions will give, sort of the children of faculty a discount on tuition. We didn't have that at the time at Clemson. But I will share, I think my maybe tuition my freshman year was maybe something like maybe $1,500 or $1,600 a semester just for tuition and books. And that's definitely very different than some of the tuition numbers that we hear nowadays. Tuition has certainly gone up. So, my parents fortunately really helped me out and helped me get through my undergraduate. Later on, I decided to go to Vanderbilt for graduate school. And while I was able to get a generous scholarship from the university, I still had to take out some significant student loans and finance that myself. And I didn't want to put that burden on my family. My family had done so much to support me through my undergrad. It was something that I really felt strongly that I wanted to do on my own. So I took out some significant loans to go through Vanderbilt despite a generous scholarship. And to be honest, I felt like it was a very worthwhile investment for me. No one ever likes to take on a lot of loans, but I did feel like I learned a lot. It was a great institution, great place for me to study higher education. It was one of the top education schools in the country. I had great professors, great classmates, and a great experience there. So it was worth it. I mean, in some cases, I think we tend to look at, nobody thinks twice about buying a car, right? But we have sometimes a hesitation, and a car is a depreciating asset over time. Its value is going to go down. But I'm a big proponent of education, and for me, making that investment in my first master's really made a lot of sense and really helped me understand higher education issues a lot deeper. And then later on in my career, several years later, I decided to go back to school and do an MBA, do an executive MBA at Georgetown. And I did it luckily while I was working at Georgetown. And it was one of the reasons that it really encouraged me to do it, because Georgetown is also very generous for their employees who want to do degrees. So they offer you, they help you out with tuition as well. And, it was enough for me to say, what, I want to continue to invest in myself and I will do this. So, I thought long and hard about it, but it was a great decision for me. And only to share with folks, like, if there's a will, if you want to, continue your higher education, there's a lot of ways that you can access it. Obviously, groups like a continuous charity, between federal work study, Pell Grants, student loans, there are a lot of ways to get through it. Some people will go work for an institution to get tuition discounted. That's something to think about. For a lot of folks, you can also have a sponsor. Maybe your company will pay for your tuition to do a graduate degree. But also don't forget, for a lot of graduate students, there are these things called teaching assistantships or research assistantships, where the institution can pay for your tuition as well. So don't be intimidated just by that sticker price. There are ways to talk through that and hopefully find a way to finance your education and get through it with minimal student loan burden.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the assistantships, because I went to the University of Chicago for my undergrad, and I got my bachelor degree in biology. And alhamdulillah, there was a lot of aid, federal aid, in that process. I come from a big family, and my father is the only one who's ever worked. My mom was always a homemaker. So alhamdulillah, I got a really good chunk of help from the University of Chicago. And then there was a lot of scholarships as well. There's some scholarships are out there that are so tailored to who you are, like especially as minorities. You can definitely find resources out there. I would always be on the websites. I think back then it was called fastweb.com. I don't think they still, I don't know if they still,
Fastweb. Still there. Oh, yeah.
There was something called FastWeb where you can find all of the current scholarships, and I would be on there every single day trying to find scholarships. And alhamdulillah, for my undergrad, I didn't have to worry about finances too much. But then when I was getting my master's, I got my master's in biology from DePaul University. I was thinking, okay, that federal aid kind of, it goes away, after your first 4 years. So I was thinking, how am I going to afford this? And there was a research assistantship at DePaul University where if I also was a student there getting my master's, but also teaching the biology labs for the undergrads, then they would actually give me vouchers towards my tuition. So therefore my master's also, I taught and was paid, and that payment went straight to my tuition. That worked out really well. Then when it came to medical school, so my next step was I want to go to be a doctor. That help it declined more and more. So it seemed like there was really no resources out there. And alhamdulillah, I think at that same year where I decided, I'm not even going to go to medical school, is when a continuous charity actually started. That was 2013. So as I was looking around looking for resources to try to fund my medical education, ACC was starting off, maybe with $1,000 budget, maybe a $2,000 budget, just thinking, this is a problem that needs to be solved. And there are students out there, me at that time, who needed them. Alhamdulillah, now the budget is bigger, but it can definitely grow. We have a lot of applications into our organization, and there is a rejection rate just due to the fact that we don't have the money. So I also just want to share again the LaunchGood link for anyone who wants to donate. The LaunchGood link is launchgood.com/HakimaACC. And then I also want to again give the ticker for the book, What Does a Muslim Look Like? And girls, do you want me to show everyone your colored pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
This is from my 4-year-old, Aya.
Nice.
Very nice.
Lots of diversity in that photo.
Exactly. The brown one is like, it's just like all over the place.
Brown one's having a rough day.
Yeah. Very nice. And then this is from my 5-year-old. She also just chose one color per person. There we go. Oh, can you see it? Maybe not.
Very cool.
Okay. Yes. So that's our little activity to go along with the book. Go ahead and purchase your book off Amazon, and then also print off our coloring page. Kids love to color, so we wanted to add a little activity there.
Cool.
Let me see if there's any. We have a comment here. It says, "Lovely book, thank you," from Ahmed. You're welcome.
Got a couple of thumbs up and some clapping from our friends in California, Malik and Taught It, and then we've got I'm sure Adam and Sammy are watching, and Yasmin and Selma are watching from South Carolina. What's up, guys? A lot of family on board today.
I'm happy to see books talking about Islam. There's so many books these days, and we really enjoy it. I'm actually in my homeschool right now, so we have lots of books, and it's really great to meet one of the authors, and thank you for the work that you've done. So
of course. Definitely want to encourage people to be generous to your organization. You guys are doing great work supporting students, so thankful for that.
Thank you so much, and inshallah, we will see you soon.
You got it.
All right.
Take care, Hakima.
All right.
Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Bye, guys.